Watering the front yard's pretty easy. There's these two things right here, and leaning up against here is the nod, like the handle to turn them. So you just go and put it around here like that. And the one on the left. Just gonna crank these guys on, this one and the other one down there. And then I also turn the one on the right because it gets the area down by the garden box, which might seem kind of silly, but I planted ice plant down there, and that way it doesn't die. These go dead for a little bit, but then they all kick back on once the water actually gets down there. Leave it on for about 20 minutes every other day. All right? That's front yard. On the edge of the driveway, you've got these shrubs, which we planted. These are the 5 shrubs. And then you've got the herbs. These get watered every other day, and these get watered every 4 days. This is the hose in the front yard. If you turn this nozzle to the left, obviously, this connects to a irrigation system for the roses. Don't worry about that. This one, I leave it at about halfway. I mean, this is fully closed. You can hear it. And now that's fully opened. I leave it about halfway so that you get sort of like a moderate drip coming out of here. That's still a little strong, but that's fine. And then you just come back and I just prop them up for like 5 minutes each. You know, this is definitely a little stronger than I would usually do it. At this, I'll do it for 5 minutes. If it's a slower trickle, I'll do it for, you know, maybe 10 minutes, which is a little annoying. You just go and, you know, I do it while I'm like getting work done. Just put it there, and 10 minutes later, move it. 10 minutes later, move it. And you get all 5 of those every 4 days. The herbs are a quick water. They really don't need a lot. You just kind of give them a nice little soaking. You'll see the water doesn't soak in that fast because I keep these pretty well hydrated so that they grow and don't die. That's rosemary. This is oregano. This is basil. And this is sage. Feel free to use any of these. I mean, look, you see how it's sitting there? These are still really nice and wet, which is good. You want these guys to stay pretty damp. The one thing about the basil is if you see those little white flowers, make sure you pick those, because if they're flowering, the rest of the plant isn't really going to grow. So pick the white flower off the basil. Just like, you know, just give it the old pinch off. You're good. So in the backyard, it should be pretty obvious that this side is the side I've tried to go grass in, and this side, which is all brown, I haven't tried to do anything in. So even though this is largely weeds that I've just trimmed down, we still water it because the grass that has grown, I still try to keep it alive, because I'd like this to be a soft, playable area for Jonas. So you take the hose, which is just going to be on the deck, attached over there, put this attachment onto the hose. Put the hose just kind of out in the middle of that area. You just kind of have to eyeball it and guess. Then walk over here, and you have to turn the red nozzle on top to actually turn this spigot on, and then this thing means that the water's coming out. I usually eyeball it and see and keep an eye on the oh, there's a kink here. Hang on. I see how much power is generated by watching this sidewalk, because I want to make sure the sidewalk's getting wet, because that means water's getting to the edge, but I also don't want it to get drenched. This actually is kind of good, like perfect distance. The deck is going to get a little wet during this. It's a waste, but what can you do? And you do this for about 20 minutes every 2 days. The last piece is the vegetable garden. We've got 2 tomato plants, this guy and this guy. Then we've got a cherry tomato plant. We've got an eggplant and zucchini, which actually has zucchini right now, which is kind of sweet. I have this tarp up because it's been 100 degrees for the last week, and everything was starting to wilt. You can leave this tarp up if you want. They're still growing fine. If it gets under if it's only going to be a high of like 80 or 85, you don't need this tarp up. But don't feel like you have to take it up and down. I would just either take it up if it's over 80, and otherwise, if it's going to be like a cooler day, maybe just take it down for the day. But otherwise, you can just let it be. It's going to be fine if you leave it the whole time. The water level for the veggies is really important. You open the red all the way. But this one, you really only open it a little bit. You want a pretty slow trickle. I think that's even a little fast. Like, that's perfect. It's like just barely coming out, you know? That's pretty much what you want. because then that's really going to soak all the way through to the bottom of the roots. You want to try to avoid getting any leaves wet, so you just put it down at the base of the plant and just leave it there. And this you just let it go for 10 minutes. This you do every 4 days. Best done in the morning. Night's fine too, but not during the middle of the day. You really want to try to avoid doing this during the middle of the day if you can, because otherwise that water's not really going to stay. I've got this mulch which helps to keep them hydrated, but you just go and each of these plants you let them run for about 10 minutes at the base. The funkiest one to grow is the zucchini because it's so big. Its base is kind of huge. I just kind of like tuck it in there somewhere, you know what I mean, and sort of let it be. You might see that branches will die and wither. That's fine. That's going to just feed the soil anyway. This is cool. They have like flowers that bees come pollinate. Zucchini grows really fast. I mean, this guy 2 days ago was tiny. This guy 2 days ago was half the size of this one. So when you see a zucchini, keep an eye on it, because if you don't, it's going to get too big and you won't be able to eat it. It'll be really gross. These tomatoes are taking their sweet time. They've been here for a little while, but they're not red yet. If they get red, eat them, please. Like, eat anything you can that grows. I'd love for you to eat it, because that's the whole point of this, is to be able to eat what we get. That's really it. Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, this is an apple tree. Those apples are totally edible. A lot of them fall before you get to them, but if you want to, grab them when they're red. Feel free to eat them. This was a plum tree, but that's already empty, unfortunately. But yeah, feel free, like I said, kind of the whole point is eat whatever you can find if it grows. So, and dude, I'm like surprising myself about how obsessive I've gotten about this stuff, how much I love taking care of these plants. So you helping me out, I appreciate so much. It is so helpful, because otherwise these would all die and I wouldn't have really been able to enjoy them yet. So thank you very much, Matt. So one last thing about the tomatoes, which is pruning them. This is pretty nitpicky. If you don't get to this, that's fine. But I'm trying to zoom in here. It's not really working. Sometimes you'll see, look between the branches, okay? And if you see a little growth right here, there's a little growth. That's called a sucker, believe it or not. And you want to get rid of that, because otherwise the energy is going to go towards this thing growing rather than the energy going towards these flowers turning into tomatoes. So if you just come out and see one of those, just pick it. Just take it out, and now the energy is not going to be distracted towards this. It's going to be focused on making those into nice juicy tomatoes. Sorry this was like super blurry, but hopefully you got the point. This one is a pretty clear example of a sucker. You've got a branch, got another branch, you got this growth right at the intersection of them. This will turn into a really sturdy branch, but we don't want that. We want instead the energy to bypass that and go up and turn these flowers into tomatoes. So any suckers you see, again, like I literally come out here and I like stare at these things and look for them. I'm not asking you to do that, but if you're out here and you see a sucker growing, you're going to get a better chance of actually getting to eat some of these tomatoes before we get home, if you get rid of those suckers. Okay. I keep coming up with one last thing. To take down the tarp if you want, this is, you know, I just untied one of the corners and folded it back. I mean, the nice thing is it's still tied over there, it's still tied over there, and it's still tied to the playhouse. And I just took one of the corners and then looped it back up to that spot. So this will stay where it is. And now, like tomorrow morning, I'll leave these uncovered until probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11, and then I'll cover them back up. So if you know that like you're going to be here that late, then maybe you uncover them in the morning and put them back on. But if you know you're not going to be, just leave it covered. It's so much better to have it covered than uncovered, because if you uncover it, the worry is things are going to overheat and die. If you leave it covered, it just means it might slow down growth, but they're still growing and they're doing fine.